everybody. It's good to see everybody here. My name is David Tyre. I'm with Turnipseed Engineers, and I'm here with my colleague Michael McCracken, also with Turnipseed Engineers, and we are the consulting engineers for the city. Okay. Now, what a consulting engineer does is we help the city with the infrastructure projects that may be kind of special, larger, and that the city can't do on their own. Okay, and so we work with a lot of municipalities, most of them small to medium-sized cities, a few counties. So this is very familiar to us. This is kind of our bread and butter. All right, and so we hold these meetings for funding purposes. Okay. And so the funding, GFA is the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, okay? And they fund infrastructure projects in Georgia using low interest loans and some grant, okay? And so they require a complete environmental document to be produced. And that's the document you see here that Michael's got. It's a lot of pages. It's got a lot of information in it. Basically what it is it's a description of what we're doing in, or what we are proposing to do in Franklin Springs, okay? And it is sent, a synopsis of the proposed project is sent to over 10 state agencies, okay, for their comment. And each one gets to comment. Now, this is prior to any permitting for any facility that may be built or proposed, okay? This is just to make sure that the funding is lined up, okay? So after a period of 30 to 45 days, the state agencies send us a letter, and they either have comments or they say no comment. And if they have comments, then we are required to incorporate those comments into the design documents and the final construction plans, if those come to be, okay? Now, the purpose of this meeting is to collect public comment, okay? So we want to hear what you have to say. Matter of fact, we're required to hear what you have to say, but we do want to as well. But we also need to write down the comments, okay? So what I'll probably do is let everybody, if we, time permitting, everybody who wants to say something, stand up and say something. Then I will probably repeat back to you a synopsis of your comment so that I can write it down, succinctly and concisely, and turn it into Georgia EPD, which is where this document is going. Okay, so this document is not complete yet until we include the comments from this meeting. Okay, so I want everybody to be to understand that we're here to hear your comments, and we'll do that, and we're going to write them down as best we can, and we'll include them in this document. Okay, so there's a lot of folks here. Sometimes we don't have any meetings like this, believe it or not. Okay, but it is a really good thing for the community to be involved, okay? And I know some people may not feel positively about the project, and that's okay, all right? We want to hear from everybody. If you do feel positively, we still want to hear from you as well, okay? So, having said that, I guess we need to figure out an orderly way for everybody to speak that wants to speak, okay? So I guess to start out, can we have a show of hands of who would like to speak? Okay, and you can decide to speak later. You don't have. I'm not holding you to anything. If everybody was going to speak, we might go first row, second row. But I think we've got, for right now, I'll just call on somebody, and you could stand. I don't think we have any microphones or anything, so try to speak as loudly as you can. I'll repeat what you say, like I said, and and try to summarize what the comment is, okay?
Could we have them come up to one central
Of
place?
course, yes.
That would be
That's a
better.
great idea, okay? So if you would like to, we can come, stand here. I need to be at the podium so I can write down, but, yeah, and this is the recording for the paper, so if you want to stand near near this phone, that would be the best place for your comment to be recorded. Okay. All right, so let's see the hands again, and we'll get started. Yes, sir. In the pink shirt.
Yes, sir. John
We can-
People.
John Peoples?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Could you tell us the scope of the project, the total scope of your project?
Okay. So right now, we're in the preliminary phases, and so we're working out the scope. What we're doing here is the environmental process for funding, but in parallel is the EPD permitting process, okay? So EPD stands for the Environmental Protection Division, and they are under EPA, right? But they're a state agency, whereas EPA is a federal agency. And EPD has permitting requirements, okay, that are separate from this. And so the original watershed, what do we call that? Not the watershed, the
Environmental review and planning document?
no, what we get for the first step, the waste load allocation, sorry, I blanked. So the first step is the waste load allocation, okay? And that is typically the most you would ever want to try to build a facility for in this project, okay? So it's specific to the proposed project, but it is also the first kind of shot across the bow. And so that has been submitted, okay? And it was submitted for 4 million gallons per day, all right? Now, that was submitted quite some time ago. Since then, this document is for a 1.5 million gallon per day plan, okay? So it's a little bit less than that.
Treatment.
Wastewater treatment, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, wastewater treatment plant.
Not 2 facilities.
No, no, sir, just one facility.
Okay. Rendering.
We do have exhibits here in this document that you are welcome to look at that have site plans, preliminary site plans. We can't guarantee you.
For 2 sites.
Just for one site.
Okay. But not rendering, not poultry.
No, sir, this is a municipal wastewater.
Okay. Okay, totally. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peoples. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask, I'm Joe Lawrence. I wanted to ask, following up Mr. Peoples' question about 4 million gallons a day. To me, that sounds like a ton. What is the average for a town like Franklin Springs? And does that not imply that there's bigger industry than maybe all these people that has been admitted or divulged that, is gonna depend on that kind of output? Is that out of scale for Franklin Springs?
So your question is, or your comment is, 4MGD was what we said the waste load allocation was submitted at. Is that, why is it that large? What is the average? Okay, so I will tell you that it runs the gamut, obviously. Franklin Springs right now has an existing wastewater plant, okay? If you go there, it looks like a pond, all right, because that's what it is. It's a lagoon treatment system. Lagoon treatment systems have their own problems. Most of the time, they don't last forever, and so they have to be replaced, okay? And Clyde can probably tell us, he's the operator of the existing plant, and he will be the operator of the new plant, and provided it is built. And so Clyde can tell you some of the problems that he has to deal with on a daily basis, right? So the first step to answer your question is usually what happens is a pond lagoon facility is replaced by a mechanical plant, okay? And so mechanical plant is one that you may conjure in your mind, if you think of a wastewater treatment plant where there's concrete structures, there's some equipment, aeration in the basins, there's filtration and that kind of thing, okay? Whereas what is there now is just a pond, and there's aeration in the pond, it's earthen pond, right? And so there's some aeration, and then there's disinfection, and it goes in the creek. So a mechanical plant is built to be able to treat to kind of modern day treatment levels, and so it has to have some additional equipment, okay? So that's the first thing, is mechanical plant is the first step. If you'll, pardon me, I'm making notes so I can take this down. So then the question becomes how big, okay? And so the answer is you don't want to have to come back and build another plant if you can help it, right? So you want it big enough to handle all the everything that could come down the pike for 20 to 40 years, okay? We tend to say that our plants are built for 40 years or more, hopefully more. The GFA that we talked about, which is why we're doing these, doing this meeting particularly, are 20-year loans, usually. They do go to a 30-year, okay? So we expect our plant to last longer than that. And so it needs to be able to handle the flow, the foreseeable flow from 40 years. So the 4 MGD, and it's usually a good idea in the permitting process to start off with as much as you think you'll ever need, and then pare it down, okay? If we started out, and so what we are at now is 1.5, and that's not necessarily, that's a preliminary as well. That's not necessarily saying that the final finished product, if it's built, will still be 1.5 MGD. That's just where, when we're trying to get the scope together, that's where we're at right now, okay? So it's not 4 MGD any longer, although it could go, theoretically, it could go back up. What you don't want to, if we had submitted 1.5 MGD originally and then came back and said, oh, we need 4, we'd have to start back over at the beginning of the line, okay? But if you're taking away capacity, you don't. You can just keep going, all right? So that's why you want to have bigger at the beginning and trim down if you need to, rather than start small and try to get bigger throughout the process, okay? Because it's a long process. The permitting process takes about a year, okay? So that 1.5 MGD is the plan for 20 to 40 years, okay? So does that answer the question?
But you're asking, I'm a little confused still, you said 1.5 million gallons per day is the plan for 40 years, but you're asking for, didn't you say $4 million? 4 million gallons?
That was the original ask probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
So, and actually that was even before we got involved. That was submitted prior to our involvement. But the reason you do that, there's an understandable reason. The reason you do that is because it's easier to take away capacity as you get in the process than it is to add it in. If you add in capacity, you got to go back to the beginning of the process. Okay. I tell you what, is there anybody over here? I've had 2 on this side. Anybody on this side? Yes, ma'am, in the mustard shirt. Blouse. Of course, come on.
Where do you want me? I have a statement.
If you'll stand right here, then the phone can better hear you.
Okay, my name is, let me get situated. You want me directed this way, though?
However
or
you
just
like. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. My name is Karen Irwin. I'm from Hartwell, Georgia. I'm a Reed Creeker, but I am here to read a speech that is sent by the Savannah River Keeper, and you can have a copy.
Yes, please give me a copy.
Okay, yeah, this is my copy. I got to read it, and then
Sure.
I'll pass it on to you. And I'm sure you know the executive director, Tanya.
Bonatuba?
Yes, thank you for saying it for me.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I may not have said it correctly, but I
Okay.
did.
She's written a letter essentially to Mayor Moore. So, and this is her statement, and she wrote this today. She wanted to be here and could not, so I'm reading her words. Savannah Riverkeeper has grave concerns about the proposed wastewater treatment plant expansion in Franklin Springs. Upper Savannah OGG water planning documents have already identified Franklin Springs and Franklin County as a water poor area with existing drought issues as experienced last year with the Toccoa River. Rapid expansions of water use without substantial and significant investments in water conservation are likely detrimental to the waterway and the citizens who will ultimately bear the financial burden of this new facility. We are also deeply concerned about the potential construction of a rendering facility within city boundaries, which could increase soil amendments and putrid discharges from such operations. Purina remains one of the most chronic violators of waste disposal regulations in surrounding counties, including those directly downstream on the Broad River. Establishing a new facility would only amplify the production of soil amendments and the need to discharge waste around the clock into the community. This will have lasting impacts on the lives of Franklin County citizens and those living downstream. While we support the development of upgraded wastewater treatment facilities that replace outdated systems and allow for limited growth within the community's water supply capacity, many rumors surrounding this facility suggest that it is not the case here. The Broad River serves a critical role for downstream communities, including supporting the largest lake east of the Mississippi River. An increase of 4 million gallons per day of effluent discharge will significantly alter the chemical makeup of this vital waterway, impacting its current ecological function. Communities and businesses downstream rely heavily on this water, and it is unjust to negatively impact one community of business owners to benefit others who are not even located in the county. We are further troubled by some of the individuals and organizations rumored to be involved in this project. There is a genuine concern that Franklin Springs may face a situation similar to Madison County's biomass facility debacle. In that case, violations of environmental laws and clear harm to the community were overlooked to ensure the county could meet bond payments for water infrastructure serving the facility. Madison County is now burdened with an industry that has proven detrimental rather than beneficial to the local community. For over 15 years, I have worked with counties surrounding Franklin County in their efforts to stop the abuses of rendering industry and soil amendment companies. The proposed expansion will permanently alter Franklin Springs and the communities downstream. It is also essential to note that we will ensure water quality monitoring downstream of the new wastewater treatment plant is conducted continuously to verify compliance with all permits. That data will be made available in real time to all citizens within the community and the Savannah River Basin, providing transparency and empowering residents to hold the facility accountable. We would appreciate the opportunity to sit down and discuss this project with the responsible parties, including Franklin Springs leadership, and look forward to active engagement in the months ahead as the project moves through the regulatory process. And this is the statement from Savannah beekeeper Tanya, and you help me pronounce the last name.
Bonatovos, I think?
Yes.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I didn't want to. Thank you.
Look it up. Yes,
Okay,
thank you for
thank
this. Okay, so let me just say that this document here is about environmental safety and environmental. It allows. It's an environmental planning and review document is what it's called, okay? And it allows all the state agencies to become aware of this proposed facility and to comment on it, okay? That's completely separate from the water quality in the river, believe it or not, okay? EPD, that parallel permitting process that we were talking about, is the state agency, the Environmental Protection Division, under federal EPA, is required to maintain the quality of the rivers in Georgia, okay? And so that permitting process is separate, and it ensures through modeling and then the limits that they would impose on a proposed facility, that the river is not degraded or polluted, okay? Now, that's not to say other places have had problems, okay? I understand, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there are a lot of steps that we have to go through to ensure that that doesn't happen, okay? So, the other thing I'd like to say just really quick is that we have worked with the Savannah River Keeper in other cities, okay? And we have had them be positive towards our facilities that we had proposed, okay? And the reason is because if the facility is gonna clean the water better, if the new facility is gonna clean the water better than the old facility, then they're for it, okay? And they don't have a dog in the fight, okay? They are only looking at the environmental impact, okay? And if the pond can not remove ammonia and nitrogen, but the new facility is capable of doing that, then the new facility will probably do a better job of keeping the environment clean than the existing facility, okay? Now, there's more pollution, okay, but EPD does factor that in, okay? They do it on a total pounds basis, okay? So the total pounds going in has got to be below the limit that their model says, okay?
Can you
So-
document some of the stuff you said about your company being really happy and Savannah Riverkeeper being happy with all of your work? I mean, that's a nice statement.
I didn't say they were happy with all of our work.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
I said we have in other cities, and I think one of the aspects, or one of the things noted in the letter is that they want to sit down and have a meeting with us, and not speaking for the city, but as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to have them feel positively towards this facility. I think that they will, because they have in the past, not for everyone, right? So I'd love to have a meeting with the Savannah River Keepers, and I'm sure we probably will at some point. Okay, I'm in the middle this time, red jacket.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was your name, sir?
Oh, I'd like to speak later. I just put
Okay.
a quick response just
Sure.
to this so I didn't forget.
Okay.
So I'm Alvin Allen.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of questions for you. So is this plant being built with LAS systems or land application systems?
That's not the design.
Okay. And is there a strategy for water reuse to ag or industrial, coming out your effluent coming out and then going back to either ag system or into?
That is not currently the design,
Okay.
but if we can reuse, we have other plants where we've done that.
Okay. Is it sludge disposal? What's the plan for that?
So with most of our plants in small towns, the sludge disposal is via dewatering, okay? Where we get the solids, the biosolids, to a dryness of about 18%, okay? That's 15 to 18%, and then it's disposed of in a landfill.
Landfill, have they all? The last question for it, is there any energy recovery, any methane recovery during your biomass digestion?
But we have looked at that in the past. The problem is you have to, not that you asked, but the reason it's not economically viable is because you have to clean the gas so much that that adds a lot to the cost.
I'm familiar with it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Good.
All right,
Well,
that's
thank
it.
you. Mr. Allen?
Thank you.
Can I get you to clarify something?
Yes,
The 4 million versus the 1.5 million?
yes, sir.
Is the 4 million the 40-year down the road maximum that the plant would ever be approved for? And
No.
1.5 million is what we're building today?
So the 4 million is really, since we were talking about permitting, we might as well go ahead and get a little, dive down a little bit of the details. The 4 million is the first step, and that is the step where EPD models the river, okay, and decides the quality of the river as it is now, to the best of their ability, and what the river can accept in terms of effluent from a new facility, okay? And so when the city submitted that request, it was for 4 million gallons per day. I would say the 20 to 40 year projection is 1.5 million, okay? Now, we do build them, I will say this, we do build the plants with the ability to expand as easily as possible, okay? But we don't build them to be expanded, you know, on a definite basis. We build them so they could be expanded if the community grew, if there was a need, and the community agreed. So, does that answer your question?
So the 1.5 million is the 40-year max that right now you would think you're looking at?
Yes.
That's the idea.
So the idea is if we knew there was gonna be, well, we'll call it 20 year max, okay? Because the funding is 20-year period, then what we would say is if you knew something, you're gonna get additional flow coming to the plant in 20 years, we would say, well, let's build the first phase for what we're gonna get in 20 years, and then when that loan is paid off, then get a new loan for the new plant, okay?
Because Franklin County has, in the intergovernmental agreement, has asked for 900,000 gallons.
Right,
Per
yeah,
day.
yeah. So,
Because what has been talked about around here is 2 million gallons a day.
that's right, and so we were, and I'm not at liberty to say what Franklin County would like to do. We have done consulting work for them, but they haven't told me that I can share that. But if Franklin County were to discharge 900,000 gallons, then that would, we had originally thought that we should increase the flow of the proposed plant to 2 million gallons per day. But then, after thinking about it in subsequent discussions, we said, well, that's probably too much, okay? And so a more judicious size would be 1.5. But that was considered. Hopefully hopefully Franklin County's not gonna be upset at me, but I don't think they will. So,
Question real quick. You said
sure.
the 20
Can you give me your name first?
Andrew Brown. You said the 20-year funding only allowed for so many gallons. But then we just told you about the county's 900,000. So does that mean that we gotta get another long next time?
No. What I'm saying is, we are trying to do our best to size the facility for at least 20 years, so that we don't have to expand it for 20 years. Now, what we're building, we expect to last over 40, okay? So there's a little difference there. But we would not build it to expand within 20 years. So if it happens, we've had other smallish towns that have built a facility, and then before the end of construction, they're starting an expansion because they're growing, okay? And so they needed it, so, but we try to be judicious and not overbuild the first time. I'm sorry.
Just
you have
real
something?
quick, we were told there was another funding that was actually paying for this. So I'm confused on somebody paying for a 20-year plan, when we were told somebody's paying for the project itself, but then we were also told that Franklin Springs is paying 100%. So I'm kind of confused. I'm getting 3 different answers.
So the facility is for Franklin Springs, and so Franklin Springs is ultimately gonna pay everything, right? Now, hopefully they get a grant, you know. We try to get at all of our clients grants, so that they don't have to actually come up with the cash or get a loan for the full amount. But ultimately, it's gonna be the Franklin Springs town that's on the line to pay the whole cost.
Another question real quick. how do you know how much to plan for if you don't know if there's businesses coming in? And certain businesses can exceed those gallons.
It's a tough job, yeah. It's a tough job, but that's what we do all the time. But I will say this, so we talked about going from a pond to a mechanical plant, okay? That's, let's say we were going to 4 million gallons, okay? Going from a pond to a mechanical plant is probably half the cost, all right? Going from the pond to a 1 million gallon per day facility, I'll say, is probably half the cost of going from the pond to a 4 million gallon per day facility, right? So if you're gonna build something, if you're gonna pour concrete, it makes sense to do a certain amount, okay? An economy of scale. You don't wanna we could build a mechanical plant that will only serve the existing flow coming into the pond, but that would be pretty short-sighted.
Nancy Peoples, hi.
But, let me just take down his note and then I'll get right to you, Ms. Peoples. Yes, ma'am.
In speculation and in dialogue of this water treatment plant and what you're preparing for, and in answering the questions that you don't know, has any of this conversation or any of the dialogue, has the rendering plant been brought into this? Personally, your company, or anything as far as what you're preparing for, what you're trying to look for, is in part of that dialogue, are we discussing a rendering plant to prepare this water treatment plant for? Are you personally aware of any of that, or is your company aware of that there's really two things in this room tonight?
So we are trying to design a facility for the current and future needs of the city, and that's what we're doing.
Yes, sir. Do you or your
And so
company
we
have
feel
any
like-
awareness?
We feel like that 1.5 MGD is the right size
Answer the question.
for,
Please answer the question.
Hey, if you get out of line, you'll be asked to leave, okay?
that's fine, I'm good.
Get out of line.
Believe it or not, sometimes I do have to speak in front of folks that are not happy.
And certainly, and so my question is to you, is just in the dialogue that because there are lots of moving parts.
Right.
In the dialogue, in building this to bring to us tonight, is there discussion of a rendering plant? Do you personally or your company, it's a yes, no question, sir.
So
And I mean, not being
whenever
respectful.
we design these plans,
It's a
okay,
yes, no question.
we always, just like Mr. Crock asked, Crook,
CRUMP, Crump.
just like Mr. Crump said, there's always a guessing game about what's coming. But you don't want to build something that is going to be undersized for at least 20 years, hopefully for 40.
Do you have an awareness? Have you had dialogue? Have you had any?
That's the answer to my question.
Okay. Well, that's not really an answer to the question, but I appreciate your time. So that does really answer my question.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go back all the way in the back. Yes, sir. Brown hat.
My name's Greg Combs. I live right across Rice Creek. My property goes all the way to Broad River, borders Franklin Springs. I've got one question, well, I've really got two. First question, is it a human waste disposal plant, is what you're proposing?
Yes.
Human waste only?
It's municipal. It's a municipal wastewater treatment facility, okay? Every city treats human waste and other waste, okay? So it will be for the city's commercial and residential population.
As far as you know, as an engineering firm, are there any difference in a wastewater treatment plant for a rendering plant than there is for a municipal?
There is, yes, sir.
Okay, so that's not even in the equation here, right?
So there is a difference in the constituent that you would normally see from a municipal source versus an industrial source. That is true. But the city has, or will have, before this plant can move forward and get funded, a sewer use ordinance, okay? Which says what can be discharged to the city's sewers, okay? And that will have maximum constituents in it. And everybody is required to comply with that.
Okay, and the other question I've got is, I own a small, you'd say a hobby farm. Right now, I can only pump so many gallons of water out of the river for irrigation. Is this gonna have an effect
So
on the agricultural
this,
part? Because that river doesn't have about 6 inches of water in it, July and August.
right.
It
So
gets so low that the canoe, company, not even connected.
So this facility will add water to the river, right? Because water from other parts of the city, if the water from other parts of the city currently does not go into that section of the Broad River, okay? Probably I'll have to go back and look. Michael probably has, I can't remember off the top of his head, but if on the other side of the city, usually cities are built on a hill, so usually on the other side of the city, the water would go to a different river basin, okay? And so what we're saying is the water on that side would potentially now go into the Broad River, okay? And so the Broad River flows would only increase at this point.
Well, I know from experience that like Royston pulling water out of the river right there at the bridge.
Now, that's for a water plant.
Okay, but now it has bearings on what I can do.
Yes,
My
it
property.
does, definitely.
Okay, and I don't want anything else to hinder me in
So
what
in
I'm
terms of
doing or to
withdrawal, this
affect
will
me.
not hinder you at this point.
So you can say without a doubt it will affect the
Now,
agricultural.
the state may tell you you can pull out less, but it won't be because of our plan. All right, let's see. Yes, sir.
You don't mind us sitting here, sorry.
Sure.
I think I missed, my name is George Elrod, E-L-R-O-D. I think I missed when you said the agency that you folks are representing.
Could you spell your last name again? I'm sorry.
George Elrod, E-L-R-O-D.
So we are with Turnipseed Engineers.
With what?
Turnipseed Engineers, okay?
Have you been contracted by the city of Franklin Springs, is that correct?
Yes, we are consulting engineers, civil engineers, and we've been contracted by Franklin Springs.
Okay, to proceed with the development of a water treatment facility.
Wastewater treatment facility.
Oh, no other requests have been made?
That's correct,
by
for the permitting and design of a wastewater treatment facility.
Right. You mentioned the requirement for the city. Now, I may not have heard it exactly. Did you say the requirement for the city of Franklin Springs for some time could be accommodated with 1.5 million gallons? In addition to the Franklin County request, which would be
Yeah,
2
so
million. 2 million.
again, getting into Franklin County's business, which I
Well,
don't
just
really
as a
necessarily need to
theory,
get
you know.
into. So what you're saying, the 0.9 MGD, 900,000 gallons per day, if that was coming tomorrow, then we would probably recommend a 2 million gallon per day facility, okay? Now, but let me clarify, okay? So you're right, the numbers add up, so that if in 20 or 40 years, Franklin County is producing 900,000 gallons, and then Franklin Springs has got 600,000 gallons, right? Then we're at capacity, right? And so what we're saying is, that's a great problem to have, and in that case, we would have to expand, okay? But that may not happen. Or Franklin County may only have 600,000 gallons in 20 years, and Franklin Springs may have 600,000.
By that time, perhaps Franklin County will have their own facility. Let's talk about.
Now, Franklin County does have their own wastewater treatment
Okay,
facility.
but they don't this year. Can you give us some examples of what in a city of the size of Franklin Springs, what would cause the requirement to be raised to the 4 million gallons in terms of population increase or industrial, industrial,
So in
uses?
general, okay, for our plants, the cities, small to medium-sized cities in Georgia, in general, what causes the increase is residential population, okay?
Okay.
Now, you've seen, like outside of Atlanta, Henry County, City of McDonough, City of Sonoya, those are some of our clients, okay? You've seen how they build houses, right? And so that's primarily why we have to expand our plants.
Okay, as you know, you've already examined the situation in Franklin Springs. It's not that large of a city. Of course, probably could be annexed, I suppose. But there's not, perhaps there's not enough space for a doubling of the requirement. Perhaps there is, I don't know. But that's
So
not.
typically, what happens is, no city starts out with enough space for that. They annex.
No, okay. One other question. You say you forward your information to the EPA, EPD? Which one?
So it's EPD, which is a state governmental agency, right?
Right.
And so they review everything, and at the end of the line, at the end of this permitting process, then they submit it to EPA, and EPA has the final say.
Okay. And you spoke of the document you have there has to have, or has places for citizens' comments. And I think you probably already know what the main interest of this group is. If you fill that book up with the comments that you're taking, can you tell me the effect that it might have, other than just being comments from the citizens?
Yeah, it does have an effect, okay? Let me just tell you, it does have an effect. Now, but I will say this, EPDs, if we had a representative from EPD here, he'd be agreeing with everybody here, okay? He'd say, of course. He said, I mean, those people work there because they want the environment clean, okay, believe it or not. And he would say, if we had the director of the wastewater treatment division, he would say, the whole reason we have a permitting process is so that what gets discharged into the rivers of the state is not polluting rivers, okay? And it takes over a year to permit it. And they've just tacked something onto the end that also takes a year. So really, 2 years for the entire permitting process.
When you turn in your report, do you have a recommendation that goes with that report?
Well, the report is for a proposed facility, so the recommendation is to build the facility, or else we would have done the report. I mean, obviously, so it's not our job to evaluate the environmental
I understand. Well,
impacts,
from your-
that's for EPD. So our job is to do what our clients ask us to do, which is to design and build a wastewater plant. Now, if in the right way, through the obviously correct permitting, if EPD says that's gonna have an adverse environmental impact, then it's not gonna happen.
So you don't make any judgment about the environment?
Well, I mean, I don't want pollutants to go in the river either, right? But, and so I don't like, design things that would be illegal anyway, they'd throw me in jail, but I don't want a bypass that would cause the river to be polluted, you know, in my plant. I want it to be treated the right way, and I try to design it so that it's easy to operate, so that it's hard to mess something up, right? And so that's kind of my way of helping the environment. But in terms of evaluating, like, for instance, there's another facility that we're proposing to build, and hopefully we'll build in North Georgia. And there's a fish in that creek called the robust red horse. Has anybody ever fished for that? I have not ever heard of it before. But
It's in the Broad River too.
is it? Okay.
I think you're thinking of the Cherokee Darter.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Cherokee Darter, yeah. The robust red horse is, where's that one?
Down here.
Here, oh, I'm sorry, yes, so, see, very good. I'm sorry, I apologize. See, Michael's, you can tell he's the sharp one. But, I just get up and talk. But, so the robust red horse is in the Broad River, right? I didn't know the robust red horse was in the Broad River. But EPD did, right? And so when we sent this document to all the state agencies, I guess it was U.S. Fish and Wildlife? Okay. U.S. Fish and Wildlife said, whoa, wait a minute, there's a robust red horse. We need to take that into account, okay? And then in North Georgia, it's Cherokee Darter. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Uh-huh. Appreciate everybody's patience, thank you. All right, front row. Yes, sir.
My name is Gary Moon. I don't live in Franklin Springs. I did for about 25 years. I live downstream. So my interest is more with folks that are impacted downstream. I have just 4 concerns. I can't think of any way that it benefits the out of Franklin Springs downstream folks other than the catfish will likely be a lot bigger. Otherwise, four things I would like to know at some point. If your group isn't doing the environmental study,
No, we did the environmental.
I mean, it's the environmental impact study. You did?
Yes.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, well then good.
I can't, I'm not qualified to evaluate it because I don't know about the things that may be.
Okay, great. So just 3 things. One is, and maybe it's in the report already, if not, what I'd be most interested in seeing, what's the baseline of this river? I've kayaked almost 70 miles of it. There are only 2 places between here and the Savannah that's over your head. It's a very shallow river. So what's the baseline with all the runoff, fertilizer, chicken houses and so forth? Is it starting at a good place or toward the top of what's normal? Number 2, I would love to see 100 randomly selected studies of similar sized plants on similar sized river where things went sideways. What percentage of the time does something go bad 10 years, 15? I mean, as a study, not an opinion. I would want that kind of hard data. The other thing is, we drink well water. So I'd also want to know what's the impact of groundwater as well.
Okay.
That's just what I would need to know to be fully informed as a downstream resident.
1 second, let me just go through these here.
Okay, thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, let me take down his question and then try to answer it, and then we'll move on to the next.
Thank you, Dr. Moon.
Okay, so first, how does the community benefit?
Well, no, we covered the catfish part. I can't think of any other. How does the downstream community benefit?
Yeah, so typically the community does benefit by economically, okay? That's the first thing. That's kind of why everybody's here, right? But the community benefits because a new plant produces better effluent, okay? So downstream, you'll have better.
Please, I didn't quite hear you.
A new,
Economically, downstream will benefit how?
no, the first reason it benefits the community is economically, right?
And how is that?
Because if you don't have infrastructure, then nobody can come Well, nobody wants to come because everybody wants water and sewer, right? Now, the second way it benefits is it improves the environment because a new facility treats water better than the lagoon facility that Clyde's currently working with, okay? So, obviously, we could discuss it all night, but that'd be the two main things I would say. Now, the baseline for the Broad River has been done by EPD, okay? And those are called TMDL studies. It's do you know the acronym?
Total, like maximum daily load or something?
Perfect. Total maximum daily load. Okay, that's TMDL. Thank you, Mike. And so what that does is that is like the level that the river can operate on and maintain the biota and everything. Okay. Now, do you know what the main problem with rivers in Georgia is? It is not wastewater plants, and in some places it's industries, but not across Georgia. Most of the problem with rivers is animals that, have their feces on the ground and the rain washes it into the river, okay? And so EPD has, in the last 5 to 10 years, started to focus on that. It's called non-point source discharge, okay? Our plant will be a point source discharge, but the runoff from fertilized agriculture or the runoff from cattle farms gets in the river. And so now, because Franklin Springs, just to let you know, it's we do this for a lot of cities, but after the facility's permitted and they say go, if it is permitted and they do say go, then the next thing we have to do is a watershed assessment, okay? And that's a series of 3 documents that's about the same size as this that analyzes that with real data where they go out and sample, okay? So EPD has already started doing that. The impact to groundwater.
But where we currently are then, is it currently like normal? Is it already kind of high normal as far as what it's already dealing with?
Oh, it's normal. It's normal. Yeah, it's not. They right now they have rivers that are over the TMDL, and I'm saying that right, correct? We're not in that. No, we'd have to do a lot of additional stuff that we have to do. So it's not. So that right now they have the ones that are over the TMDL and the ones that are under, and I think they're starting to get the ones that are close. But to my understanding, the Broad River is under, so it's normal, and I don't think it's close, but I don't know for sure.
And so sorry, but you mean under what is abnormal, or under in the sense that it's under is better than average?
So the average, okay, is the TMDL. Okay, the TMDL, the average doesn't really mean anything with regards to your river because your river is different than every other river, right? It has a robust red horse. It has different flora and fauna in the river, okay? And so average is not a good term, okay? What your river, because some rivers may have to be a lot better than average to support the animals and fish that are already there, right? So there's a line that says the river cannot support the animals and flora and fauna in the population that they are now, okay? So not just 1 or 2, but if the population cannot sustain the population, that's the determining factor. And the Broad River is below that line now.
We have TDLs, sampling from our Broad Watershed Association. Many sections of this river up here do not meet that standard already, and especially during droughts, they're way up. So I think you need to redo some of your research.
Well, the stretch, the reach that we are discharging to does meet. So, I mean, that's all I can say.
We've been testing that river for 20 years.
Will you tell me your name now?
Michael Moody.
Michael Mooney?
Yes,
Moody. Thank you.
May I please ask a point of clarification of your response to Mr. Elrod? I think I misunderstood something that you said.
Sure.
Okay. I thought I heard you say that it was good to be operating at capacity that about 81% of our wastewater treatment facilities are operating close to capacity, and about 15% are over capacity. So I was trying to get a handle on what you thought about what level of capacity should a wastewater treatment plant be operating at. I was just trying to make sure I understood.
Sure. So in general, I hadn't heard that there's significant pollution due to overloaded wastewater treatment plants. That's interesting. I'd like to know more about that. That'll, that'd be helpful in my job. And let's see. And so what we generally say is when your wastewater treatment plant is within 85% of your permitted capacity on an average daily basis, okay,
85%.
then it's time to start building or start the process to build a new plant, okay? Because if you assume 5% growth a year, that's 15, well, it's actually 4% with compounding, but anyhow, in 3 years, you'll be at your limit, and that's about how long it takes to build a plant, okay? A year for design, a year for funding, a year for design, and a year for permitting.
Thank you.
And a year for construction, which is parallel. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm a second year at the University of Georgia. I'm studying environmental economics and management. And I would just like to say I also live on the Broad River, and I've grown up on the Broad River. And also going in with the drought aspect, I've also worked at the Broad River sandbar. And there's times we can't even put any kayaks down the river, and it's so low. But also to the aspect of the environmental impact. And let's assume that we're going to put a rendering plant here because it won't be addressed. So you say that it will help Franklin County economically, but if we have this plant which won't be addressed, that will push people out. The putrid smells, everything on the environment as a whole. And also, Franklin County is just a drop in the bucket for how much of the Broad River corridor that will affect the counties that go down. So there's really no way of saying, well, it's just affecting Franklin County, but it's not because of how many places are downstream of this river.
Can you give me your name, please?
Addison Peoples.
Addison. Our plant will not have putrid smells, okay?
Well, we're saying in the aspect of the rendering, because you won't address that. So we're saying it's going to assume.
Yeah, I just want to set the record straight. Our plant's not going to stink, so.
Well, we understand that.
Could you clarify that? So how the emission controls are going to be put in the plant? So it's not.
There are none.
There are none. So is it a biological treatment facility?
That's right. It's biological treatment, okay? When it runs properly, like this plant will be run, you can smell it when you are at the structure, but it's not putrid, it doesn't stink.
You said you could smell it.
It's a musty smell, okay? But it's only right there at the plant, and the plant does not stink.
Okay, so the aerator ponds and all, they're got enough bio load that keeps the odor down?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's give somebody else that hasn't spoken a chance. Yes, ma'am, in the sunglasses.
I'm Lori Huster, and I have several questions. So I live just up from where the sewer water treatment plant's going to go. So last August, there was a dog that got loose named, he was on the run, Dooley.
Okay.
So we were looking for Dooley. We live on the North Fork and have land on the Middle Fork, just up from the wastewater treatment plant. So we thought we're gonna go look for this dog, my husband and I. So we got in the river. The water was like this in August, okay? So we walked all the way down the North Fork. Then we went up, whatever the creek is that goes into the park. Forget, Rice Creek. And there were places there was no water flowing. Okay? I also have a farm where I irrigate row crops. And I'll easily use 5,000 to 10,000 gallons a day. I have 500-foot drilled well, but I also have another location where I irrigate off of 150 feet. So last year during this drought, both of my wells struggled. I had massive water consumption, we had no rain. So I have a concern, I have many concerns. One is, when the city of Atlanta, because I grew up in Atlanta, I haven't been out here that long, has I think it's called an excursion, right? They have a failure. Stuff gets dumped into it. It's in the news. I mean, those of us who grew up in Atlanta, we grew up hearing about the hooch and Atlanta and South. My understanding is they call the Corps of Engineers and they open up the dam at Lake Lanier and they release water. If there's an excursion from this wastewater treatment plant, there's no water upstream. And in the paper, Mayor Lee Moore says, source of water, well, we're looking at drilling wells around the area. Maybe we'll bring some water in from, he said, other parts of the county. Maybe you'll pull it, I don't know, from City of Hartwell. I have no idea. It was very general in the paper, but I live very close to this site. I'm worried about irrigating my farm. I live on these two rivers. I know what it's like in a drought, and I don't think the drought that we had last year was the worst we've ever had. I also know the GRP plant ran out of water. They consumed Toccoa's water, and then they drained the holding tank for Franklin County, and then the whole county, we were told, we're on water restriction for anyone that was taking water on the county line. I mean, I'm grateful we have wells, but I'm really worried about the source of water for this plant. And then, so there's that question. I have another.
Well, we are going to be putting water into the river. So
what's the source of the water for the water treatment?
It is the
Dr.
waste,
Pepper.
the sewer.
I don't know what that means. Dr. Pepper.
Is the sewer from all the people that live in Franklin Springs and the commercial entities that are in Franklin Springs.
That's the source of the water? That's the waste going in, but don't you need clean water to process?
No, very little, just to wash things down, that kind of thing.
Okay, so my other question, so I am concerned about if there is an excursion, because these plants are mechanical, I've been reading online, parts break down, they only last so many years. There's no water upstream. What are you gonna do? If the solution to pollution is dilution, what's the water? That's my new.
I will say
I
this.
just learned that.
I know, that is a no-no, okay? You're not supposed to believe that the solution to pollution is dilution.
But these
That is
treatment plants are
that is a
mechanical.
no-no in our industry.
But it happens, it's a fact.
No,
It is
there's
a
treatment.
fact.
It has to be done,
No, there's treatment, okay? So the waste, okay, is either, well, the waste ultimately comes out and goes in the landfill, okay? As biosolids, okay? But the water is treated, it's not just diluted. So let me just tell everybody that's a fact. We are adding water to the river, we said that. Now, there are plants that have failures, and I think that was one of your questions.
Where's the water coming from? I'm sorry, you said that you're adding water to the river? You mean
Yes.
the plant or?
The plant is adding water to the river, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Water coming out.
yeah.
Jackie or somebody over here might can clear up something. Where does Franklin Springs get its source of water? Who do you buy water from?
We buy it from the county.
From Franklin County?
Yes.
And that water is coming from, they don't draw it out of the Broad River.
I'm not sure from the county standpoint.
So I live just up from where Waston pulls its drinking water. It's right across, I'm right across from the state park. I'm on the North Fork. So the source of Waston's drinking water is the North Fork.
Yes, that's correct.
So, all right, so that was the first question. The other one is, how many connections are you designing for? Is it one for the county, one for the city? How many more connections is your
So
facility?
we don't generally do it that way. We do it
Okay.
in terms of growth and how much growth. And it's a conversation, so we're having now, with the city. And, you know, how big do we want to build the plant now so that it's not oversized, so that it operates well? You know, so, I mean, that's kind of how we do it, you know.
Okay, your facility, is it capable of handling industrial waste? Will it be designed to support industrial waste?
So, we are designing a plan for municipal waste, okay? And so, if the industrial waste is within those parameters, it can treat industrial waste.
Okay.
If the industrial waste is outside those parameters, then, we can't treat that in our plan.
Okay, so let's just say hypothetically, Franklin Springs was in an agreement with, or was considering an agreement with, poultry rendering, poultry processing, biomass, let's just say, okay? Poultry waste is known to contain high levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, heavy metals, biological contaminants such as salmonella, E. coli, campylobacter, whatever, campylobacter. Is your facility designed to remove this?
It is designed to remove most of those constituents in the quantities that they are in municipal wastewater.
So if there is a facility, they would have to treat it before they send it to you, is that correct?
That is the ordinance, you know, remember when I said the sewer use ordinance?
Yeah.
That the city would have to have before this facility could go in, before it could be funded, would say what the limits are for users, all users.
Right, so let's just say there is a facility connected to your new wastewater treatment plant and they struggle.
Well, I can only tell you what my plan is designed for.
How would you guys
My plan-
handle an excursion from something or receipt of something?
My plan is designed for municipal wastewater, okay? And, there are excursions occasionally, or I'm not gonna say occasionally, sometimes there are excursions, right? EPD has an entire enforcement wing, okay, for that, to make sure that those don't happen, okay? I would disagree, But, but if you're worried about excursions, then you should worry about the existing plant that is very old, and not the new plant, which will have all new equipment and new structures.
I'm not as worried about the new, I'm worried about what's gonna hook into it. And whether or not you guys are gonna be capable of handling their malfunction of what comes into your facility, and then what happens if your facility malfunctions, and what ends up in the river.
The easiest thing to do is to pay the fine. That's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
We eater, it affects our livelihood, what we drink, what we eat, what we do, where we swim, everything.
That is not the case.
Happens every day.
I'm sorry, I just need to correct the record, okay? There are fines, EPD does fine cities, okay? But if improvements are not made, and if the, treatment is not improved, and the effluent is not within the limits that EPD requires, then the fines stop and the court cases start, and then EPD can eventually take over that facility. Okay, yes, sir.
Has that been the case in Fulton County, in Cobb County, and Chattahoochee River for the last 40 years?
What's your name, sir?
Barry Wood. And I'll elaborate on what a couple of people said here. And I don't know what your document shows, but I can tell you what 40 years of being on Chattahoochee River is like. And I'm not talking about being on it 4 times a year. I'm talking about some years as many as 100 days. Nothing's ever changed. I would imagine that Fulton County, City of Atlanta, and Cobb County has state-of-the-art systems, I would think. Because every few years you hear about they're building a new system. So I assume that new system is supposed to be state-of-the-art.
You think?
But the catch is, it's never changed, sir. And if any of you, before you comment, any of you, including you or the city officials, I can take you in a jet boat. I'll go spend as much time as you want on the river, and I'll show you proof. And if you can come back from that boat ride and put this in your area around your neighbors, I don't think you'll do it. About what I can show you.
I'd have to agree 100%. Okay? Now, one thing...
And also in the Etowah, in the small little city of Ball Ground, Georgia, which is about the size of this. Same thing there.
Well, I can't speak on ball ground, okay, because there are a lot of small cities that, not a lot, there are some small cities that have poorly functioning wastewater treatment plants. I do know a little bit about Gwinnett and Fulton and those counties, and I know that they are so big that they can, sometimes make their own rules, okay? And I also know that they build facilities, that sometimes, cost a lot of money, but don't necessarily work better.
But what happens, sir?
They cost a lot of money, but don't necessarily work better.
What happens, sir, is when they have this malfunction, it's not like you say, oh, y'all just keep breaking the rules, so we're gonna shut you down. It just keeps on, because the facility's there already, and you can't stop it, because we gotta treat our wastewater. So we just keep doing the same thing. We get a slap on the wrist. Atlanta gets big slaps on the wrist. But guess what? They keep doing it. Next big rain we get, it overflows, fecal matter or levels are super high. They say, don't get in the water, don't get in a canoe, don't get in nothing. I've lived through it for 40 years. I know it.
I agree. I'm agreeing with you.
And if y'all think that's not gonna happen, you're being bamboozled.
Well, the city of Franklin Springs does not have the political weight that those large counties have, and so they will be forced to.
But there will still be malfunctions. I don't mean to degrade your engineering, but it's gonna happen. Whether it's in 2 years, 5 years, or 2 months. Things break. And things happen. But you said you're bringing water also that's going to another river basin, and it will be coming to this river basin?
I don't know that for a fact, but I do know that a lot of times cities are built on a hill, and so water from the far side of the city will go to a different basin. And I have not done the analysis for Franklin Springs.
Well, if that happens here, I guess I've lived through a lot, because I've had land taken from me twice through eminent domain, where they start crisscrossing the county, pumping sewage across the county that should have been going to another basin, but they're pumping it over to this new fancy wastewater treatment plant. And when they're gonna put those sewer lines through, don't think you're gonna tell them no, because when you tell them no, they're gonna take it by eminent domain. It's happened to me twice, I know. And if any of y'all wanna take a boat ride, I'd love to carry you, and I promise you I'll change your mind. Promise you I'll change your mind.
Can I say one thing?
Well, is there anybody that hasn't spoken that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Michelle Kay. So I have a question. Has your firm designed in the past, or is it designing now or planning in the future a waste treatment facility that will work in conjunction with rendering and or biomass plants? And if so, like, has your firm designed?
So our firm works with a lot of small and medium-sized cities.
Okay.
Some of those have chicken plants or
Okay.
other plants, other industries. And so ultimately, our plants receive everything that is disposed of by the city, usually, almost always.
Can you tell us any locations where you have designed a plan that?
So I have to represent our clients, okay? And this is obviously a contentious discussion, and I don't think they want to be brought into this contentious discussion.
May I ask another question? And I understand that the Broad River is considered the cleanest free-flowing river in the state of Georgia. What is the capacity of the current plant that is in Franklin Springs?
It is 0.3 MGD, I believe.
Okay.
300,000 gallons per day.
It's 0.1.
I'm sorry, 0.1. Okay, 100,000 gallons per day. We're planning to expand that because that is very close to what is already coming into the city's facility.
And is this document available for public view that's going to be submitted to the 10 state agencies?
This is the document. It has been at City Hall.
Okay, but are we?
And you are welcome and encouraged to come and look at it.
Okay. Is it possible to get a copy of it if we go to City Hall?
If that, I will leave that up to Miss Jackie because we'll be happy to provide more copies to the city, so that other people can
And you
review
dig
them.
put them online.
They are not online, and I don't think that you can take them off the premises. Although I could be wrong about that, okay? I don't wanna be getting into legal territory that I'm not, that I don't know.
And one more question, what are the 10 state agencies that this document has to be submitted to?
Michael, can you help me?
I can like scan through them, because at the end it has the letters we sent out and their responses to that, or at least their responses.
Have the letters already, has this already been submitted to all 10 state agencies?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just flip through. So here we have Georgia Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife Resource Division. Actually talk about the robust Red Horse. We have the Watershed Protection Grants with the Georgia PD. Then we have Floodplain Encroachment Review. We have Georgia Department of Transportation. Here we have the Historic Preservation Division. Farmland, U.S. Department of Agriculture. Here's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That's most of them, unless I skipped a couple.
So there's about 10.
Thank you.
Is your company?
Yes, sir. Is that in the back?
Yeah, my name's Mark Ernst. I grew up here. I lived my lifetime. My dad still lives here. Just got a question. If the city does nothing, if they did anything, which I don't think is an option, but did nothing, what would happen if they continue to use the pond that they presently have? And let's just say 200 homes went up, or an apartment complex that would house 200 or 400 commodes. What would happen I mean, there's a breaking point where the city's going to get in big trouble if they don't do something. So I would like to know, what's the option other than what you're doing? If they just decide we're not going to do anything, we're just going to let this pond continue to do what we've been doing for the last 50 years or whatever.
Yeah. So the pond is already close to its average daily capacity for flow. So it is not going to get better treatment. It's not going to be less expensive to operate over the coming years. It's only going to get more expensive to operate. Okay. And so if your hypothetical happened, then it would overwhelm the pond, and there would be a environmental problem. It would probably be called a spill by EPD, and there would be environmental problems. Okay, so the answer, EPD will not. Well, they've changed recently with all the inflation. They've allowed some folks to build new lagoon treatment facilities, but in the past they have not. They have required it to be a land application system or a mechanical plant. And so the question is not. So the question is not whether we should build a mechanical plant, because the existing plant's got to be upgraded. But the question is what size mechanical plant to build. And so I understand that's what a lot of the questions have been, but if you're gonna build a new plant, it's gotta be a mechanical plant, pretty much, and what size should it be? So that's kind of where we're at.
Is dredging that pond part of the equation, or is that impossible to do?
So you can dredge the pond, but that is not, that helps, but that is not gonna solve all the problems.
Whatever the problems we have.
Yes, ma'am, I don't think you've spoken yet.
I'm Marlene Ray. I work with a local remaps company in Franklin County. And did I understand you right that you're writing down all the comments tonight to add to this report?
Yes, that's correct.
But you've already sent this report to the 10 companies.
Yeah, so that's right. Let me just explain the process in a little bit more detail. So the first step in the process is to send a summary of the proposed project to these 10, we'll call them 10 state agencies. The state agencies come back with comments, okay? We take those comments and we put them into this report along with a more detailed description of what we propose, all right? And And then we have this meeting, we advertise it, we take comments, we put the comments in this book, and then we send that to EPD, okay, the state agency, and then EPD approves or does not approve.
So
This
the
step-
comments don't go back to the 10 companies that had to look at the report?
No, they do actually, because before this is, let's say EPD does approve this, they could say, no, we're not approving it, and then it stops, right? If they do approve it, then it goes on the state website, and I believe at that point you can access it online. I'm not 100% positive, but all the it basically goes before this, it goes on the state website for comment, okay? Additional comment for 30 days, all right? And so then all the state agencies can comment then. And I think individual citizens can comment as well. But then after that, if there's significant comments as determined by EPD, not as determined by me, then it'll go back into review again, and we'll probably have another public meeting, okay? If EPD says the comments are not significant, then it goes to the director's desk to be signed.
So the comments are real important?
They are. Yes, ma'am.
That groundwater question.
1 second.
Yep.
Thank you for your patience. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Megan Pump, and I have two questions actually. My first question is, if this goes through and this passes to the EPD, how long will it take this plant to be built? That's my first question.
Okay. The construction will take about a year.
And how long will this process take for it to be approved or denied, or the regulations that you?
So we think about another 4 months.
So you're looking about maybe a year and a half.
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay. And then my next question is, I have recently been diagnosed with a rare lung disease, so I am really concerned about the toxins that this water treatment plant would even be given off. And then hypothetically speaking, if another industry comes in to partner with this, those chemicals combined and the pollution there, what would that look like? And I'm concerned about that. If you have any comments on that, which I know you
Sure.
say it would stink, but.
Well, the processes that are that we're proposing are 100% natural. Okay. Basically, these types of plants do what nature naturally does, just faster. Okay. And so I have never heard of any airborne issues with folks with respiratory illnesses. That's not to say it has never happened, but I've never heard of that. So I don't think that's it.
Naturally speaking, though, like you don't use like chemicals to naturally dispose of your waste.
There are chemicals that we use, okay? One chemical is lime slurry, okay? And that basically brings the pH up so that if pH gets too low, all of our beneficial bacteria that break down the waste die. So we've got to keep the pH up. The other chemical is alum, okay? It's aluminum sulfate, and that helps the biosolids that we talked about coagulate, okay? And so coagulate means they form larger and larger particles, which then fall out. And so when those particles fall out, we take those out of the process, we dewater them and take them to the landfill. So those are the two chemicals.
Okay, and with your industries before, when y'all said that you worked with poultry industries and stuff like that, was there ever any issues with that? Because you do research and put two industries together of this kind, then there's not good research studies on that. And I have contacted my pulmonologist, and I was informed that I would need to relocate.
Okay.
So that's highly concerning to me.
Anyone else that hasn't spoken would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Mary McGarity, that's McGarity.
Got it? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you guys for coming tonight. I have a lot of respect for architects and engineers, and they work hard, but also know that numbers are the game, right? Time and money, that's what construction's about, and engineers and architects support construction. So the crux of everything, we talked about synopsis earlier. I'm trying to gain an understanding in a layman's terms of what's going on. What I hear you saying is the proposed facility for waste treatment that's proposed down here at Double Bridges is like a basic infrastructure expansion for commerce down the road that hasn't come here, right? Is that my understanding of what you're saying? The facility being proposed will support greater industry, period.
It will accommodate growth, both residential, commercial, and industrial. Yes, ma'am.
Right, and in that, I've heard you explain multiple times that municipal waste also includes industrial waste. Am I also understanding that right?
So, our plan is being built for municipal waste, which has a definition. It's 250 milligrams per liter biological oxygen demand, okay, which is a measure of the amount of food in the water, okay, for lack of a better term. 40 milligrams per liter ammonia, okay. I think 275 milligrams per liter total suspended solids, which is just every particulate in the water. And I believe, that's the limit of what I can remember right this minute. Is it in that document?
I mean, no disrespect, Vice
No, but that's what it is.
So
I understand.
my level, and also probably
Well,
most of the
what
room.
I'm-
So may I ask my question?
What I'm trying to get across to you is,
Yes.
when I say municipal waste, I'm not just saying something that is just a
catchphrase.
A catchphrase. It has a meaning, okay?
Sure.
And that is the normal waste that a resident would discharge, okay? And so, that's what our plan's designed for.
Okay, so the question I guess I'm deriving from that is, though there has not been an answer tonight if there is a proposed rendering plan or not, and at this point it's a moot issue for this meeting, but what I'm hearing is the proposed waste treatment facility could support an industry like that looking to come into this county. And that's such an overreach of expansion for what we currently have, or could even project logically for the next 20 years. 4 million gallons, and I'm hearing like numbers in the 100,000 per day. And again, I'm completely ignorant to a lot of these terms, I must tell you that. But my understanding from tonight is this facility that's proposed and is being up for approval from these 10 different committees or organizations that I frankly find troubling, you cannot name off the top of your head when it's your responsibility, right? That's a little troubling to me. I'm speaking tonight because there are things in those papers, and again, I work for Gilbane, Turner Construction, CUH2A, I've worked for big billion-dollar companies. There are numbers in there, but they don't quantify the real things that are happening here in our community. If this facility gets built to support a rendering plant or anything else like that. You heard Ms. Crump express she has a lung disease. She has been advised to vacate the area if this happens. These are our homes. I go back in this county 5 or 6 generations. I'm a Vandiver, I'm a McGarity, I'm a Farrow. I got all kinds of last names in this county, okay? None of that fucking matters, excuse my language. What matters are the people who have worked so hard for their homes, their businesses, the outposts, slow water. This is going to not only affect our way of life, it's going to completely change it. And not for the better. It's going to denigrate our way of life. The Broad River is our lifeblood. We don't have much around here. Georgia has so much poultry industry lot of it in this county. No one's against chicken farmers. No one is against agrarian pursuits, industry, people moving to the county, the expansion. What we are against is bringing something to our homes, into our lifeblood, that is not going to be consistent or good for anyone around here. Doesn't matter the bottom line, the dollar amount, the parts per million, daily reports, any of that. Those are just details. The devil's in the details. I need simplicity. So you're telling me what's proposed to be built will support something detrimental, such as a rendering plant. Again, yes or no? This facility could support that. I hear you saying yes. Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Like,
If that facility discharges municipal waste in the quantities that are within the design parameters, then it can.
That's a yes.
That's a yes.
silence is consent, and there is so much silence going on in these meetings, and I know about non-disclosure agreements and contracts, and certain things can't be discussed openly until they're out and open. But again, I would encourage you to see it as the gentleman who offered you a boat ride down the Broad River. These are our families. You have children, I'm sure. I at least know you have wives or partners. I see your rings. We all have mothers, fathers. You know, this is my dad. We're from this county. I grew up around here. Franklin Springs, these are the haves, okay? I'm gonna tell you how it is. I grew up a mile down the road in Sandy Cross. We were the have-nots, okay? There's a lot of have-nots around here, okay? We work for what we have, and we grit and we show up every day, and we put our hearts into it. And that is what we are trying to save here. It's little to do with poultry waste, okay, and diseases. That's huge. It's going to change our way of life. So I would encourage you to try to gain empathy from what we're saying. We see the numbers, we hear what you're saying about industry. We want to expand, but we want to keep the integrity of what we have. And the integrity of the Broad River, the Hudson River, and all creeks in between.
I would just like to say that it is our aim and the whole purpose, the whole reason that we're here is to maintain the integrity of the river, okay? And so, I wouldn't be part of this if it wasn't gonna maintain the integrity. So, I'm sorry you feel that way, and I understand, I'm not trying to convince you otherwise, but I'm just saying that's our goal too.
Yeah, beautiful, eloquent. All right, so a lot's been talking about poultry. I'll be a poultry expert. So I worked for 25 years in 2 huge poultry companies. Okay, so 47 years here, Broad River, like you say, is home. But 25 years in the poultry business, corporate. So please continue, ask questions. Face these people, talk, because if you got, after, I'll be sitting right here. So if you got questions, they're valid. So I'm the poultry expert. So ask me, I'll tell you. My family adamantly opposed to it, okay? Thanks.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
My granddaughter, I'm Brenda Wallace. My granddaughter just Googled how many acres there is in the city limits of Franklin Springs. There's 1,397 acres. Where is that 400,000 gallons of waste going to come from? Millions.
So, like we said, it's 1.5 million gallons per day is what's in the design document.
Over 1,397 acres.
So we always assume that the cities will grow, okay, because it's not smart to do otherwise. right? Otherwise, then you have to spend twice as much money to size your facility. The other thing I would say is all cities, when they grow, at least the ones that I've been a part of, have annexed additional property. So we can't go by just what's in the existing city.
And also, you seem to like to put down agricultural growth. What does the urban growth, the asphalt, the shingles, the sun reflecting from, what does that do to the atmosphere?
No, well, just let me just be clear. It's not me, it's EPD that says the non-point source pollution is a problem, and that's what they've, in the last 10 or 15 years.
When you look at these big cities, they're covered with asphalt. Imagine what kind of effect that's having
That's true.
on
It does have
the
an effect, yeah.
the fuel stuff. I'm done.
Yes, ma'am, in the red.
I just wanted to, an answer for, I don't know where he went now, but he had a question about the groundwater for all of us that have wells and how that will be affected.
What is your name?
Adrian Kelsey. Most
So,
of us around here have drinking water out of
Okay.
drilled or.
Right, no, I understand. And so, the water, the plant will discharge into the river runs down where it runs, and at some point it will encounter a groundwater recharge area where surface water filters in through the soil into the aquifer, right? And so probably it's not gonna affect your well at all, because that's gonna be on downstream. But let's assume it did, okay? That's one of the reasons why EPD forces the city to go through the permitting process, so that the water that we put in the river is actually cleaner than the water that's already there, okay? And so, it will not affect your groundwater. I feel safe. Well, EPD's whole purpose is to make sure that that doesn't happen. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Lynn Briley, B-R-I-L-E-Y. My first question is, when the dried poop or whatever it is,
Biosolids.
the solids, you say they're gonna go to a landfill, but which landfill will that go to?
I'm not sure yet. We haven't gotten to the point in our design.
Could it be Franklin County, or will they take it down 51 and take it somewhere else? How does that work?
Well, they'll take it to the closest facility that will accept it usually.
Okay.
Even if it's a higher cost closer, it usually doesn't make sense to truck it farther.
Okay. And my other question is just for clarification, is Franklin Springs tied, is all of Franklin County cities tied into the I don't know what you call it, the waste management facility in Carnesville? Or is there more than one in Franklin County?
So there's an LAS in Franklin County, to my understanding.
What's an LAS? I don't know what that is.
It's a land application system.
Okay.
And that is, instead of having a mechanical plant that discharges directly to the river, it's a mechanical plant that basically has sprinklers and sprinkles an area of non-edible crop, okay? Then Franklin County has a mechanical plant in Carnesville.
Okay.
That's the only two I know about there.
Livonia has their own sewage.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry, yeah.
And will this facility, will it actually be able to handle those three, or are we just talking about the Carnesville one? I live in, well, not in Carnesville, but close to Carnesville. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that facility there.
Since we've already been talking about it, I won't hesitate again, but yes, if we want to design a plant that can accept the county's waste, if
I just wanted clarification on that, because I only knew of one wastewater thing. So, okay. So it will be for the whole county, hopefully.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to design for.
Gotcha.
Except for Livonia.
Gotcha.
Livonia is not part of the equation, at least not now. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
came in a little bit late, so you may have already answered this. How long, you said it's gonna be 4 months before you guys make a decision if you're going to go through with it or not, with this facility?
No, ma'am, it's gonna be 4 months before it could be completely permitted to the point where we could go to construction if, this document is approved and every subsequent report is approved.
Okay, so that's just the next step in about 4 months.
Well, we have a lot of intermediate steps, but yes. Mhm.
Okay, when did y'all start this project? How long have you been working on it?
I believe it's been, over a year.
Over a year?
No, I'm sorry, it's been, I have been working on it for over a year, but my company has been working on it for 4 or 5 years, I think.
4 or 5 years?
Yeah, and so funding was originally, and this is all public knowledge, this is all, the funding was originally gonna be USDA, Rural Development, which provides 40 years.
You just said the original funding?
Yes, I did. So the original funding was gonna be, USDA Rural Development funding, but, that was, not.
They pulled out.
No, getting USDA funding is too, long and drawn out process, so we decided to go, a different route, and so this document will allow us to use GFA funding, which is a little different. Can I get your name first?
Cindy Spencer. I have another question.
Okay.
Has your company been the only company working on this, or has there been any state entities or other engineers involved? Do y'all work out with other groups?
I don't know of any other engineers.
Okay. And you had mentioned a grant earlier. Has that grant been secured as of yet for this project?
There have been no grants as far as I know.
No grants?
Yeah, that have been secured.
How would you go about, I hate to sound so ignorant, how would you go about getting the grant? You submit that to the state, or does state officials help you with that, or does our IPA do that? How does that work?
So that's part of the process that we're in now. So we submit this to GFA, and GFA decides if we get a grant or not, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody else that has not spoken that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not gonna stand up, but my name is Karen Dilworth, and I live in Royston, and I'm very adamant about this. My husband's, he and his brother's grocery store burned to the ground February the 17th of last year. We are still waiting on red tape for the infrastructure of Royston. I know Royston's water system is not county water like Franklin Springs. We are still waiting, and yet to rebuild over a year later because of red tape, because City of Royston made lots of promises to begin with, then they get cold feet. My husband has offered to pay for part of the water system, water pipes to be expanded, because now we're not grandfathered in. We need sprinkler system. This was an 80-year-old business, been in the family for generations. We're still waiting. We were one of the 2 grocery stores here, 2 miles up the road. Nothing's happened. Royston needs larger pipes to have enough force and pressure for the sprinkler system. We're so-called waiting on a grant that was written November, early December. Nothing. We were told that 5 Indian tribes have to approve this water.
That's
system be?
that sounds like USDA. It's definitely federal funding that they're trying to get, and that's one of the reasons why we stopped pursuing USDA for this project.
Okay. I know Royston is different from county water here in Franklin Springs. I live a mile and a half, 2 miles from here. When litter is spread on fields, we smell it. I don't want to smell this. I don't want our business to smell it.
Now,
We're just right
let's
up-
remember that litter spread on fields is usually untreated fecal matter.
I know, but I'm just telling you the process, and I know you know, but it's been very disturbing for the community. There's nowhere to buy groceries except one grocery store here in town. We have waited patiently. We never had a clue it would take this long for something to happen. And it's very disheartening when you're almost 68 years old.
Anyone else that hasn't spoken yet? Okay,
Oh, by the way, City of Royston could not even put the fire out that night. I'm not blaming them. Water had to be towed in by volunteer fire departments. I bet there were 15 different volunteer fire departments that came out. Water had to be brought in because Royston did not have water. So I'm hearing all of this about the depth of the water and drought and all this, and I'm thinking, well, Royston doesn't even have it to put out. This is not just for us in Royston, it's for future businesses of Royston, of the street. We care too, not just Franklin Springs.
in the back corner, please. Yeah.
I may have missed it, but did you say how much this plant will cost?
I did not. So, that is not part of the environmental review, and so that's not, and really, we can't tell you how much it's gonna cost until we get the scope nailed down. So, and obviously, there's a lot of, contention about the scope. Can I get your name, please?
Sorry, Robert Fisherman. So just ballpark what a plant like this might cost. Are we talking about tens of millions, hundreds of millions? Is it $48 and I'm looking at it on my truck?
It's not $48. It's not hundreds of millions, okay? And depending on the, type of plant, there are some plants that are, less costly capital-wise, but much more difficult to operate and can, have failures if even, one computer PLC breaks down. So we're not looking at that. We're looking at something that's robust and easily operated. And so I'm going to let the mayor and council communicate costs to everybody when they're ready. Okay? But I have to make sure that I represent them because I work for them.
So follow-up on that. So I understand that you kind of know the costs. What about potential funding sources? You mentioned the GFA grant. How much is the GFA grant for, or are we talking about bonds, or what are we doing for funding?
So funding has not, this funding hasn't been determined yet, okay? This document and this meeting will enable us to do GFA funding, okay? Now, GFA funding is usually available no matter what for everybody as long as you do all the steps, okay? So we like to do all the steps because that's the one not guaranteed, nothing's guaranteed, but that's the one thing that's as close to a guarantee of being able to fund a project like this that there is, so.
Because GFA will be funding like 10%, 80, 100%?
Oh, no, in general, GFA would fund, if GFA's involved, GFA funds 100%. Sometimes that's not the case, but in general, GFA would fund 100%.
Might be funding 100%. So then my last question, I believe you said you don't know of any other engineering firms working on it, but do you know who's going to be in the construction end, or have you gotten that far?
No, we don't. Usually, we get through the permitting and then we advertise for public bids. Generally how we've talked about doing this, generally how we like to do it, and I think that's the way this will be done. And so after that point, contractors will bid on it, and assuming everything gets approved, obviously, they'll bid on it and it'll be publicly.
And that'll be public?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a quick question, wanted to clarify your term that you used for, the original funding. You referenced USDA for that, is that correct? So that is what you mean by original funding?
Correct.
And I think it was June of 21-ish that we set up that, do you
Okay,
remember?
So, I was not involved personally with the project, but my company was. And
Right.
so, if I
I just wanted to
misstated that
clarify that for
timeline,
That's
sounds like
okay.
I misstated the timeline. It
No,
was-
no, you're good, I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify that for the minutes.
Yes.
I'm not sure the exact date myself, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, and I
Yeah,
shouldn't have
you're welcome.
speculated, but, so that sounds right to me. 2021 with USDA funding source identified at that time.
And this document will be available at City Hall for review.
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?